Hello there, it's Jaymz Bee. Welcome to my vodcast. My guest in a little bit is Lily Frost. She was maybe 20 when I met her in Vancouver back in the day with the Colorifics, great singer-songwriter. She's been in Toronto for a decade or two now and never stopped writing music and never stopped performing, never stops recording. She's incredible. So we'll talk about her career and her work with the Tiki Collective. We'll tell you more about that in a minute. First of all, I want to thank a few sponsors. I want to thank Barbarian Steakhouse. I've got some contest winners from Unison Fund and Jazz FM. So I take them there for lunch and it's a win-win, a win. I love that. So yeah, thank you, Barbarians, for sponsoring this and for being such a good community person, Aaron Barbarian. You're always knee-deep in the community. Paul Barber also, barberfinancial.com. I thank him every show. He's a sponsor of every show. And, if you want to put money away, if you want to take money out, if you want to find a place for it, if you have any financial concerns, talk to him. Don't talk to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. Paul Barber, he'll help you. barberfinancial.com. And also thank you to everybody at Patreon. Anyone who has donated to me, it means so much. I'm a freelance person running around trying to do my best, and I need help, and you're helping me. So thank you. If you are not a donor, $5 a month goes a long way, and I really appreciate everyone who supports this podcast and all the things I do to get people to leave their house and go into a club, go see some theater, go see some music, do something fun, and meet some people while you're at it. I should get right into this now. Hughes Room Live, I was talking about the Tiki Collective. Lily Frost will be appearing there on Sunday. It's a Mother's Day brunch. Jocelyn Barth, Danielle Bassels, Heather Luckhart, all under the direction of Eric St. Laurent and his killer band. I'm going to be out of town or I'd be there front and center like always. But take your mom. You go there at noon 30, have some brunch, and then 2 o'clock, one long set, amazing music. Your mom will thank you. And if your mom's not in town, or like me, if maybe you lost your mom, you could just go there and enjoy the music. You don't have to BYOM. Okay. Now, I should tell you some other things. Leela Gilda is at Hughes Room Live tomorrow night. She's from the Northwest Territories. Cool. You'll hear some music you've never heard before. And also on Saturday, it's big. Big, I tell you. It's Big Dave McLean and Raul and the Big Time. So that's happening on Saturday. And then later in the week, a master of the ukulele and a mistress of the cello. It's James Hill and Ann Janelle. They have a CD release, and the music is far out. You can cello? At Hughes Room. All the listings are at hughesroomlive.com. One more thing I should mention is May 15th at Hughes Room Live. A really cool band. Tom Wilson started this band a while ago. It's called Lee Harvey Osmond, and you will love it. It's really, really cool. Kind of folky, kind of rocky, kind of jazzy, a little bit of everything, but original music, and I'd say cool. Just cool. If you want to know what that music is, it's cool. Go listen to it. Let's see, what's coming up to the Jazz Bistro? Oh, tonight and tomorrow, it's Svetlana and the Delancey Five. I didn't know her, but I did some research, checked her out. She's really playful, really good. She played the Blue Note, the Iridium in New York. She's played festivals around the world. So this is going to be high-level entertainment tonight and tomorrow. And then on Mother's Day, dinner at 7 p.m. with Fern Linston Trio. She's playing with Ethan Ardelli and George Kohler. So that'll be a great show. You could actually go to Hughes Room and then go to see the Jazz Bistro. Would that be a day or what? That'd be crazy. What else is going on? Oh, Kalia Remu. She's releasing Living in a Dream. She's a young singer. I featured her in a couple of vocal showcases, and she's really good. So go see some hotshot young musicians backing her up. It's going to be a great show. And on Wednesday, the Whiteley Wednesday, it's Ken, Chris, and Jesse Whiteley. Fernanda Cunha is bringing Brazilian music there. There's so much going on. Check it out, jazzbistro.ca. Also, Lula Lounge. Tonight, it's the Afterwork Global Party. Doors at 6:30, dinner and show at 7. Then there's live bands and DJs all night long. Same thing for Saturday. But Saturday, you want to get there early because Sean Bellavati is heading the band. And the guy's amazing. The whole night is going to be great music on Saturday. And there's a kid-friendly Mother's Day brunch, 2 seatings. And for all the information, lula.ca. Okay, while you're online, how about checking out the Rex, therex.ca, 19 bands in the next week. A few of them I'll mention: Steve Covan's Project Jazz, Attila Fia's Trio, Mike Harriott and his Off the Road Band, amazing trumpet player and composer. Lots going on there, and you might as well just check out all the listings. Plan your week around what's happening in all these clubs. Therex.ca, and then oldmilltoronto.com. In the next week, Lenny Solomon, Henry Heilig, Jules Estrin, Bob DeAngelis. You've got to love this cozy little room with great food, no cover, $20 minimum, 7:30 to 10:30 is the live music on these various nights. And they're doing more than ever over there, so always check the listings first, see if they've got a live band, and head on over there. Now, my guest, as I mentioned, is Lily Frost. I was a huge fan when she was in the Colorifics. She's still so pretty. She's still kind of got the same energy and the same beautiful voice she's had all her life. And in fact, her songwriting keeps getting better. So I knew her in the Colorifics. Then she went off and did her own thing. She put out so many different types of records. A really good jazz swing record called Lily Swings, but also some really interesting music. I mean, she reminds me of some of my favorite pop music from Europe. So she's multi-talented. She's really dedicated. She's also a mom, so she's busy. And these days, I see her a lot with the Tiki Collective. As I mentioned, she's this Sunday, 2 o'clock show at Hughes Room Live. But I see her whenever she performs, whether it's with her own band or with Tiki Collective. So let's go catch her right now. And I should tell you, while we're here, next week, the late, great Joe Hall. I'll tell you more about that at the end. But right now, let's go see Lily Frost.
I'll be with you, thou fortune sway, lantern gay, willow sad. Spring will stroll our meadow every day, winter gray, summer glad. When your hair turns snow white, you will find me by your side. I'll be with you, though fortune sway, lantern gay, willow sad.
Let's toast.
Toast. Chin chin.
Cheers.
À votre santé.
Lily Frost. I'm assuming in your life at this moment you are a mother first because you have children,
I do.
but you are a singer-songwriter maybe before anything else. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. Yes.
What is it you love so much about writing not only your own songs but collaborating with people?
Well, it's true, I do love the songwriting process. I also love performing. But songwriting for me, I was just talking to my co-producer at the radio station I work at, and he was talking about his experience of songwriting, and it made it clearer for me what I liked about it. The fact that I was always a daydreamer in school. I was the one who was staring out the window. So my imagination is not my challenge, okay? Like, it's just, the challenge for me is facing reality, the cold, hard facts of reality, and seeing things for what they actually are. So that line between fantasy and reality is always a boundary that's blurry for me.
Which helps maybe in making something a little bit surreal, a little bit ethereal.
Exactly. So I'm always like tweaked, my ears and eyes are always tweaked for something that catches my inspiration. You know, even if it's passing little snippets of people on the sidewalks, words, or someone said to me last night actually, for every one story I told, he told me 10. And I thought, that's a good line, you know? So I'm always writing it down, and it's just, I don't know, it's like a puzzle. It starts with a concept for me, the song concept, and then all the trickle bits come down, like the verses, the chorus, you know, and then it's like fitting it together like Sudoku puzzles.
Yeah,
Is that
I
what you
used
say?
to say crossword puzzles, but the
Yeah,
same idea.
it's
You're
kind of-
filling in the
Yeah.
things that need to be there and then
Yeah.
leaving it as clean as possible.
Yeah, and when it comes together, it's so satisfying.
How long does it take you to write a song that you love?
You know, It depends. Sometimes it just flows out, and other times it could take years.
Right.
So,
That's the Leonard Cohen thing.
Yeah.
You just go over and over. You want it
Magic.
simple, but you also want it to mean something and
Yeah.
touch people.
yeah.
And maybe be a bit mysterious all at the same time.
That's right. And some of them stay as little bits over the years, and you know there's something there. But finally, its time has come. It's like a child who finally blossoms.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always had this one line, it's not what I said, but it's what I was thinking. And I had a bad melody for it. I wrote it 20 years ago. But I like that concept. It's like, a lot of people say that. It's like, did you tell him? No, but it's what I wanted to say. It's what I was thinking. Well, that kind of doesn't count, right?
Right. 'Cause
Yeah.
you
never said
no
it.
story
So-
to that.
Well, you have to say what you're thinking for it to be validated in a way. So the concept of speaking your mind and being assertive and that kind of thing. So finally, I met this guy, Jeff Lurie, and we wrote a song together, and it was that concept, and it finally came out
Years later.
20 years later.
Well, speaking of years later, I kind of like to go through. You're actually from Toronto. A lot of people
Originally.
think that you're either from Montreal or Vancouver, but that's
Yeah.
just because you were there for a while.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
Toronto,
Yeah.
when did you know you wanted to sing and write music?
So I grew up in Don Mills, and were you around there too?
Nope.
It's funny because
No, I didn't get down here till much late, till the 80s.
Okay, so it's funny because Jake Gold and I worked together for a while, and Jose Contreras was my husband for a while. We all went to the same pickle barrel at like Leslie and Finch.
Wow.
Jake was the dishwasher, and Jose would go on Sundays with his family, and so we were all probably in the same place at the same time a million years ago.
Oh, and
then-
you never got to walk in and say, "You call those clean dishes?"
Exactly.
Do it again.
There again, like. But then we moved to Oakville when I was 8. So I went to OT, which is kind of like Pretty in Pink, like it's so preppy.
Yeah.
And I remember driving down Lakeshore Road as an angry teenager, saying to myself, all I want to do is sing. And I just knew it somehow. I just
Yeah.
kind of like saying it over and over and over to myself.
And then you got to McGill, right?
Then I went to Montreal, I went to Concordia. So, really artsy university, and I met the Minstrels. Actually, who did I meet first? I met Chris Page from The Stand, which was a Cornwall punk band, and he was my RA, like resident assistant at residence. And he's always playing his guitar, and I had a crush on him, and I'd knock on his door, and he had a girlfriend. So I was like, whatever. But then I was on my way
You
to...
almost had a boyfriend from Cornwall. There's got to be a song in there somewhere.
I know. He
Avril
had songs
Lavigne
like
missed that
Cow Tippin' was one of his songs. Have you ever cow tipped? Like, it's a thing.
I knew.
Supposed to be in
Yeah,
Cornwall.
yeah, it is cow tipping. I didn't know it was a thing in Cornwall. They did have a wall of corn in Cornwall.
Of course.
Yeah, it was like 25 cents a cob, and I'm like, wow, that's a deal.
So then I was on my way to Cheap Thrills. It's the record shop on, I forget what street.
great
Crescent
shop.
Or something. Yeah. And I was leafing through sheet music because I was going to sing some Joni Mitchell at the coffee house. And John Davis from the Gruesomes walked in. And he asked me, are you a singer? And I said, well, I'm singing at the coffee house. And he said, well, we need a singer. I have a new...
So this is because you're pretty and young.
I thought he was hitting on me.
I think so too, because he just walked up to a pretty girl in a record store and said, are you a singer?
Yeah.
He was hoping you were a singer. And that band was probably fairly well known by that point.
The Gruesomes?
Yeah.
They were well known.
Yeah.
Really well known. But he was starting a thing called the Sheiks, which was a 1920s lounge band.
Yep.
With Bobby Beaton and...
Which is hilarious for you, because who knew that you were going to be going down that path for
I had
decades?
no idea. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Like that was very fortuitous.
Yeah. So
It's
he
like surf,
said,
rockabilly, gothy, interesting, weird band suddenly wanting to do the 1920s.
I think it's because
jazz
John was
thing.
studying... I don't know if he was studying at Concordia or he was working the concert hall, something like that, but he was getting into jazz. He was taking double bass lessons and stuff. So
Yeah.
he wanted a singer, a lead singer, and I thought he was joking, and that was it. And then I bumped into him on campus and he said, what happened? Like, we want you to come down and audition. And I said, well, where? Like, what song?
Yeah,
like,
what are you talking
hello?
about? You
Like,
didn't call
okay,
me either.
yeah.
right?
And so he said, okay, here's the address. It's Saint-Laurent de Fines. Like, that's this location. Learn a Bessie Smith song, the St. Louis Blues. And here's the tape. He went and, like, met me again,
That's
gave me
great.
a tape and the lyrics. And I was, like, running around residence. There was this girl, Beth, who knew how to sing the blues. And I'm like, how do you sing the blues? And so she was like, you need to growl a little bit and you need to feel it. And it's, you know, so she kind of taught me.
Yeah.
And then I went to the audition, so nervous. And it was such a cool place, though. Like, it had a PA. For me, that was amazing. I'd never seen a place with a PA before, that alone. I was like, oh my God, so cool.
It's a real band.
Yeah, and like they all had these mop tops and like little beetle boots, and they were playing Ricky's, and you know, it was a white Montreal
Yeah, they had a
loft.
really, really slick look. Yeah, I remember the band. Yeah.
Mod.
Yeah.
And I sang my song finally. Like after a few, they did their thing, and I just kind of waited, and then I sang my song, and they were like, "Hey, she can sing. She can actually sing." And they're like, "We have a show tomorrow." And I was like, hyperventilating. Like, a show?
How many people? How many songs?
So we played the Rockaway Review, and I did my song, the St. Louis Blues, and I remember I didn't know how to start. Like, I didn't know about count-ins or intros. I didn't know that, right?
Why would you? It's your first time, yeah.
Yeah, and they said, don't worry, you'll just know. Phil, the guitar player will look at you and give you the nod. So I'm on stage and Phil totally forgets to give me the nod, right? So my knees kind of went to jelly, and I was like, and then
Yeah, the song's going into a long time now.
like shock. Yeah. And I saw people from residence in the crowd, and I was just like, it was this hyper real state, you know, but I found my place in the song, and then it was okay. And after that, I was hooked somehow. It just kept snowballing.
And then how long you were in Montreal for a few years and then moved to Vancouver?
Yeah. So
What brought you to Vancouver?
So I was in Montreal for 3 years, and then my boyfriend's manager is Armenian, and he said, "Lily, do you want to come to Cairo? Do you want to sing in Cairo? Because my uncle's looking for a Vegas-style singer." And I thought, well, if it's winter here and it's really nice and warm there, then I do want to go there. And my boyfriend and his band, they're all like, you have to go. It's an experience of a lifetime. And so I went to Cairo and I sang for about 6 months.
With a band from Cairo?
No, there was a piano player there who had studied at Berklee College in Boston, so he knew jazz.
Cheers.
Cheers. And from there, the guys, my boyfriend and his band, the Minstrels, had moved to Vancouver. So I came back after that trip, and I'm like, where's everybody? And they said, oh, it's amazing out here. There's no winter. It's all about the winter.
Right,
It's like, there's
right.
no winter. It's the huge selling point, and you should come check it out. So I did. And I never came back, like, for 10 years.
Right. You got to Vancouver and just went, this is it. I love the weather.
It wasn't even that. It was also the music started snowballing. Like, we were busking because we were broke. So we were busking on the street, but with a really cool sound. It had become rockabilly now suddenly because I met Bernie and I met this whole scene of rockabilly busker types, and I needed to make money for food, and that was working.
That sounds like Jethro Tull. Rockabilly busker. I don't know. There's a song in there somewhere, but let's not find it. So you were doing this, and twangy guitar, right, on the streets.
Like Bernie.
Did you already have that kind of reverb sound on your voice that you use on some records here and there in your career? There's
I had, you know, those plastic mics like the toys.
Right,
That's what I was
the
using.
tube,
The spring
right,
reverb
right.
thing. Yeah.
I actually hear that in some of your recordings. That's amazing. You actually spent $1.99 instead of like $180.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. No, I could actually imagine your voice in that
Yeah.
hollow,
Tube.
echoey tube sound.
It was good for busking because you could put it to the side and it would be like you had amplification.
Your own voice and some
verb.
extra. Yeah. Amazing.
So we'd do that, and Bernie had the pompadour and the Gretsch Tennessean, and he'd jump up on the double bassist's bass and jump off, and he had all these tricks. So that was working, and we got offers to play galleries and parties, and
Now, you put out 3 Colorifics records.
yeah,
The first one, Goody, was a
the Girly Door.
Girly Door. That's the one I don't have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
that's
never
a
heard
good
that
one.
record.
That's cool.
And then you came out with 2 others,
Guilty Pleasures,
which is the first one I heard.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last one,
Living City.
Living City, right,
Yeah.
was the last one. Guilty Pleasures was actually at the same time or a little before Combustible Edison was
Yes.
taking off. But it was
Yes.
much in the same vein where you happened to be in Vancouver in the middle of the 90s when all of that hit hard.
Yeah,
Right?
big time.
Like I remember you were pretty damn famous for a young girl when I got to Vancouver in that time.
Right.
Everyone
Well-
knew who you guys were.
Yeah, the thing is, because we were living in this loft in Gastown, and we would rehearse all the time. Like, all we did was play live shows, rehearse, and, order fast food, and that's about it.
Yep.
And upstairs were Ken and Ken
Ernesto?
and Ed. Yeah,
And Ed?
and Justine.
Yeah.
So they called us up one night.
I didn't know Ernesto's name was Ed.
Eduardo.
Eduardo. It
Yeah.
was Ed. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. I remember those
Or
cats.
Eddie.
Yeah.
So they called us up and they said, listen, not much is happening in Vancouver in terms of like a place for people to go dress up and enjoy something a bit different than grunge, because grunge was all over the place. It was
Right.
like Nirvana.
And it was the mid 90s. So
Yeah. So let's create something. Let's create a night. Let's create a scene, and we want you guys to be the main band for it. So they opened up a night. Or
Was that on East Hastings? Like, was it that far?
Yeah, the Waldorf.
Yeah, right.
The
Right.
Waldorf, which was like a tiki
Yeah. The Blue Lizard Cocktail
Blue
Lounge.
Lizard Lounge.
Yeah.
And I think we started with the Starlight Room, which had this beautiful starlit dome and like fake palm trees.
Was that the top floor or the bottom?
That was upstairs.
Yeah, the upstairs was very, very authentic.
Stylized.
Yeah.
And so we played there, we opened the night, and then we kept playing like every month, the last Saturday of the month, something like that.
Yeah.
And then they opened up the entire hotel. So it became bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's when I went, is the downstairs. I remember I'd seen you many times on the upstairs or downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Molestics were playing upstairs.
Yeah.
That was a weird, funny little quirky band.
Yeah.
And my band, the RGO, played in the basement once with those
Oh gosh.
giant palm trees and
Yeah.
swing dancers. And
Yeah.
it was
Fortune tellers.
so big. And fortune tellers and everybody.
DJs,
It
yeah.
was such a big thing. There
Yeah.
were so many people there. And the thing that people in Toronto didn't get, and Chicago, they'd be swing dancing, but they would be in blue jeans and t-shirts. And in Vancouver, Seattle, LA, people dressed vintage.
Yeah.
And it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, people
So
got
you're in the
into
middle
it.
of all that, yeah.
People got into it. We also played the Starfish Room, and we played with Pink Martini and Royal Crown Review, and we started going down to Seattle every other week and playing the Color Box and the Show Box. We played with Reverend Horton Heat.
Right.
A whole bunch of awesome bands that were doing, and then we started going all the way down the coast, down to LA and San Diego and back and forth and back, and just playing like crazy.
Yeah.
Like I remember
Was there trouble going across the border or not at all back then?
we had our visas.
Oh.
I mean, there
Good.
were some stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we didn't have visas. Yeah, there are lots of stories.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear one?
Well, yes, I do.
Okay.
I want to hear a hard one.
Well, okay. One time we didn't have the visa, and we were taking Bernie's like crappy van, and usually we cleaned it out completely, but this time, there was a joint in the ashtray. So we got pulled over, of course, because we were a band and
Yeah.
the van's kind of beat up. So they found the joint in the ashtray. And they said, so what's this about? And he thought quickly on his feet, and he said, well, I rented my van out for a moving service, and I guess they left it behind and we forgot to clean it. And they bought that.
Yeah, because you have to be
Luckily.
pretty stupid to bring a joint in an ashtray.
Yeah.
Not exactly hidden.
Yeah, but then we had this new drummer that we had found through an ad in the newspaper, and we didn't really know him very well. And he said he started lipping off to the border crossing guys and saying, yeah, the alleged joint you found. And they're like, oh yeah, alleged? Okay, let's look him up. Looked up his profile, and he had a record of being busted for a grow-op. So they're like, you go back.
Right,
Go back.
you're now touring without a drummer.
So we had to headline at the Crocodile in Seattle with no drummer. So like as a trio with no drummer, but at least we had the story to tell on stage.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Oh my gosh.
Those are the stories people want to hear, though.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not always easy. Once in a while. You were at the Royal Conservatory when you were very young.
Yeah.
Did you know back then? The bug hit you singing when you actually sang, but was there already a musical bug, or was that your parents saying this would be good discipline?
So I took piano because my mom told me to. I was good at piano. I was like very disciplined, and my teachers were always terrifying. And my mother was like, a rehearsal Nazi. So like I rehearsed and I was a good girl.
Right.
But I wasn't loving it, right? What I did love was camp and, campfire songs. I went to church and we had these big plays. We did Joseph and the Amazing
Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Oh my
right.
God. Like you get so close to people when you do productions like that. I would be so emotionally moved, like in tears.
Right, and when the thing ends, it's like, oh my God, these are my best friends.
that's
I'll
right.
never see them again.
So that connection through singing really moved me a lot more than just solo piano. It was the collective, right?
The Sheiks, Cairo, Ray Kondo, there's a name.
Yeah, Ray Kondo.
Ray Kondo.
So Ray was famous when I was in Montreal. Like I heard about him in the underground. Everybody revered him to a certain extent. He was
it Ray Kondo and his Hard Rock Goners? He had a whole bunch of different
Hard Rock Honors.
Hard Rock Goners.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of different
The
Ray Kondo and his.
the Swingin' Dukes.
Exactly.
So when I got to Vancouver, there's a place called the Railway, and they had started to do the same kind of thing as I was part of in Montreal, except it was sort of the next level. Like this guy, Robert Harvey, had a group, I forget what it was called exactly, the Something Review, and it was a bunch of women singing with the jazzy, loungy band. And so I saw them all there one afternoon at the Railway, and I'm like, I want to be in that band, right? And then Ray was also kind of hovering, and every afternoon at 5 on Saturdays, Ray would jam, and his band would be the backup band, so you could go up and sing. So I went up and sang a couple of Aretha songs with the house band, and he came up to me after, and he said, hey kid, you're pretty good, maybe you could come sing in my band. And I was like,
You were always a shy girl, and you never really expected all this stuff to happen.
No.
I can tell, like,
Yeah.
you weren't that entitled person. You really were shy and maybe didn't expect any of that to ever go
I know,
through,
it was
right?
surprising, but I knew I wanted it when it came to me.
Right.
Like when Ray made that offer, I was just so thrilled. And so I became the featured singer in his band, and we toured around, and so I got to know him very, very well. And he also, what he was known for in the city is having these amazing parties. Maybe kind of like your salons, but they were more like a hillbilly hoedown style party where you'd go, because Vancouver's so warm all the time, right? It would be outside. He always managed to find sort of like a farmhouse in the city. He had 3 different ones. And tiki, lights all around the outside, a big barbecue, and then, of course, the band. So that the PA would be set up, and one after the other, groups would just get up and play all night long. Tons of food. His wife was amazing. She made pies and all sorts of yummy, Mexican food and stuff like that. But those parties were so bonding for everybody because just because of the music, and supportive and stylish, and everyone danced, or you could like sing along if you felt like it. It was just kind of like very open.
Yeah.
And so when he passed away, suddenly, I had moved back to Toronto.
Right. And that's when you put out 2004 Lily Swings.
I put that out for him.
Right.
So
It was a kicking swing album. It was a
Thank you.
beautiful, a simple and perfect record. It got so much play on radio across Canada. It got so much radio play.
Well-
And I mean, that came out of nowhere. You suddenly were a jazz singer, even though you put out all kinds of other stuff before that.
Yeah, I had
Right.
put out a pop record, like a 60s pop record with Network, and then a singer-songwriter-y record.
Right. And a bunch of colorifics. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and so the record I did for Ray, because, I mean, when I found out, I remember I was on St. Clair, and I opened the Globe and Mail, and I saw the first page of the entertainment section. It's like a big picture of Ray Kondo just
I remember
passed
that
away.
article, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I just had to sit down and think, and I felt so disappointed that like nothing more was going to happen for him, like a big.
So did I.
huge
I didn't know
tribute.
him well. I'd only seen him live a couple of times, but
Yeah.
he had a spirit and a character, like a Big Rude Jake, larger than life,
Yeah.
weirdo character that I
Yeah,
loved.
quirky,
Yeah.
cartoony,
and
Elvis,
really good.
Hank Williams, very good singer.
You knew he was sincere and
Smart,
authentic.
that's right.
Even though you can compare him to all those people,
Yeah.
he was really being himself. Those were his
Totally
influences, and he wore them on
authentic.
his sleeve.
That's
yeah.
right. And he was smart. He acted like a hillbilly, but he wasn't. He was like an art student, philosophy type guy. And so what I did is I flew to Vancouver, and I had an arranger arrange all these Billie Holiday songs so that they were interesting. It wasn't just like everyone's jamming along on every song. It was like an arranged album with his band backing me up. So that in a Western swing style. So
Yeah.
it's Billie Holiday stuff, but done Western swing. So that was that record.
I think that was probably was that one of the more commercially successful records?
Probably, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
everyone knew that record. That was
Yeah.
really something. And then you came out with a whole bunch of records on your own. Were these kind of on your own, or did you always have different collaborators, like really like riding shotgun, or was it really you? Because there were so many records that came out.
I did look up about 6 records with Jose, with
Yeah.
my ex-husband.
Yeah.
And he was very good because he always supported my creativity.
So the first record or two where he was a boyfriend and a couple as a husband, did you do any after you'd broken up, did you still do a record?
No. We finished Too Hot for Words together, and we were professional about finishing it. We
Yeah.
were like separated, but living in the same house and working a little bit together, but
Yeah.
it was quite dry.
Right.
Yeah.
And since then, theme from Erica, the TV show on CBC.
Oh, yeah.
What year was that?
That was 2010, maybe 2010.
So you wrote that song not knowing it might end up on a TV, like you just wrote
Yeah.
a song
Well,
and someone picked it?
Yeah, like I had that idea already, like the chords and the melody, and I played it for Trevor Yulee, who was the house writer at Silent Joe with Jody Calero. Yeah, and they needed a theme, and I said, well, how's this sound? And he said, oh, that's pretty good, but let's speed it up a bit and then flesh it out. So, and then what was cool is I wrote it, and it was very metaphorical and poetic. And the writer for Being Erica came in, and she sat with me directly, and she said, I don't want poetry, I want literal. So I want you to be very clear and just say what it is. And so I rewrote it with that in mind, and it was interesting.
And that was probably a nice
Sorry.
paycheck, right?
That was so much money.
Yeah, that was a good paycheck.
Yeah, like it's funny because Jose and I went in, we had this serious like conversation about what it would take out of my life to work for them, because they wanted me to do the whole score as like the soundtrack
Yeah.
with Trevor, so full-time job, I thought, but for the money they were offering me, and they're like, no, you just have to like show up for 15 minutes here and there, and I'm like, but I've never been paid this much ever in my life, so
Welcome to television.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it can happen.
So we spent all that money.
Now you open for Coldplay, Flashing Lights, Blue Rodeo. Is there somebody you open for where you were really kind of treated like the hired help? Like, was there any place where you couldn't get anywhere
Rufus
near?
Wainwright.
Really?
Rufus Wainwright.
With
Wouldn't
Rufus,
even
you
look at-
couldn't.
He couldn't barely see me, over his nose. I was so excited to meet him. Oh my God.
And it didn't quite work out. I had some off the record conversations with people during these podcasts,
Yeah.
and that's a running theme. It's an interesting running theme.
Yeah.
But with the other people, like I'm thinking like Blue Rodeo and people like that, was one of my favorite things I saw you do was out of nowhere, and it was at a winery, a celebration of a winery. I wish I could remember the name of it. Hildebrand, the big
Yeah.
one. So Kevin Bright brought you up on stage.
He's a genius.
And you guys jammed, and he just knew that you could do that.
I know.
That's my story about you,
Cool.
because you're telling me stories about people who invited you to work with them. When he brought you on stage,
I love improv.
unbelievable how sweet and amazing that song was, and it will never be heard again. It was a one-time thing.
I know, he's special.
Robbie Botos was on stage, Mike Downs. It was like a really interesting
Yeah.
group of people
Yeah.
backing up, and she just said, come out and let's just make a song right
That's
now.
right. Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. You know who else I think is really lovely and she stands out of all the people that I've worked with is Sarah Harmer.
Right.
Very nice, salt of the earth person.
Yeah.
Non-competitive, down to earth, real person. Really liked her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now, who haven't you worked with that you want to work with in the future? Who's out there right now that you're like, oh, I
Lana
wouldn't.
Del Rey.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit of a jump, but David Lynch.
David
Wes
Lynch.
Anderson.
Yeah. Wes Anderson. I see it.
I'd love it.
So
Yeah.
so in those sense, you're meeting, you're having dinner, you're talking to them, and you're writing music for them,
Yeah.
not necessarily
For their
with
film,
them.
for their films.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been very visually oriented and inspired by movies.
Well, it took me a long time to finally work with you, but the Tiki Collective Muse record, I have to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because that's fairly recent. That was only last year.
Yeah.
What is your recollection of your time walking into the recording studio at Canterbury Music
Well,
Company?
first of all, I had never been to Canterbury before, so that's a gorgeously authentic place. And I remember Eric Saint Laurent had a lot of responsibility that day. He was doing a lot, and he's a genius as well. And I liked what's his name again? The engineer, James.
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy, lovely, and
Yeah.
it's his space, right?
Yep.
And we did a couple of songs, but it felt like Mountain High Valley Low just sort of fell into place.
Yep.
It just sunk into the groove.
It gelled so beautifully.
Yeah.
And now it's one of the most requested songs, top 200, I think it's like in the top 20 of the iTunes jazz charts.
Well, it's amazing that you asked me to sing that song to begin with, because I always loved Eartha Kitt's version. Years ago, like since I was 18 years old. It stood out for me as almost like a native tune. Like it just felt very tribal in a way, and poetic and simple but beautiful.
Well, I thought of you because of all your work with the colorifics and
Yeah.
everything you've done, even what you're wearing now. Everything you've done seemed like she would get this 1950s.
Yeah.
You know, and
I
I had a
love that
different
song.
version of that song that I listened to over and over, but I just had a
singer.
feeling.
Yeah.
And when you sang that, I think it was so. You and Genevieve Marentet both had songs that were so dry and perfect. It was really just one pass through. We did it 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
but it was one pass through,
Yeah.
and everyone knew that's the song.
Yeah, yeah.
So that kind of music, what is it? I mean, it's still in your life.
it is.
It's a mixture of pop. It's a mixture of exotica. There's a kind of a whispery David Lynch-like soundtrack to your life.
Julie Cruz, Peggy Lee,
Right.
Lana Del Rey, all those crooners, or actually they're not crooners, they're songbirds, I guess, but they're torchy.
Yep.
There's something beautiful about torch music,
Yeah.
and it's so sensual, and
And you get to share it now.
yeah,
Crooners and Songbirds
that's right.
on Zoomer.
Yes.
You're actually on AM 740 playing really cool music.
Thank you. Well, it's now become theme-based, so it's moved off of just crooner music. You have to
can be anything.
create a new concept every week. So
Yeah.
last week was dreams, which I found interesting, actually. Dreams are fascinating. I used to record my dreams in university every morning, and they can be very inspiring. And now I remember them because I went through a year of recording them every morning. Do you ever do that?
Well, I know I was told to, but my dreams are so weird it would take me half a day to write them out.
Yeah.
And I actually should probably lie down on a couch and have you interview me one day.
Yes.
Because those
Love you,
dreams,
James.
especially how many dolphins can end up in one dream, it's crazy.
Yeah? Dolphin dreams. Maybe you're a Dogon.
Thank you for your time, and
Thank
good luck
you.
in everything you do.
Thank you, James, so
Cheers.
much.
Wow. Thank you, Lily Frost. What an amazing gal, huh? Now, I have other podcasts. If you haven't been here very long, surf around. You'll see stuff with David Clayton Thomas, Barbara Leka, Colin Hunter, all kinds of people. And they're always fun. Now, next week is something a little more serious. It's the last interview with Joe Hall. He passed away recently. He knew he was a goner when he asked me to come and visit him. He didn't know when. He said, I might even be around in April, May, but he wasn't sure. Well, he left us, and he was one of my favorite singer-songwriters in Canada. I used to say he was the Frank Zappa of Canadian folk music. But that's not really fair, because it's stinting praise, because he was funny, he was wacky, he was completely wild, but he also wrote beautiful ballads. Some of the most beautiful songs I know. So I'm going to talk to him. It's something I taped just about a week and a half before he passed away, and I love the guy so much. So that's going to be a little bit tough to watch at points, but it's important. And if you're not a fan of Joe or you don't know who he is, check out YouTube. Listen to some music. Look at some videos of him back in the day, and you'll understand why I love him so much and why you should be watching. So until then, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching, and please join me next Friday. See you then.